Hello, friends. So happy to have you here with me today at Radical Joy. If you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time with me, well, I'm glad you're here. Each week, I'm here with you talking to myself about things that weigh on my mind and heart, hoping if you're dealing with something similar, we can adjust our perspectives as you listen. Hey, if you're struggling with something that needs immediate attention, please know that help is available. Just dial 988 nationwide in the U.S. to reach the Mental Health and Suicide Crisis Hotline. All of us here at CLW Studios believe that mental health is a vital part of our well being. The more people I meet and the more places I go, the more I realize how important it is to make people aware of the fact that there is no shame in enjoying the parts of our lives that are incredible. It's time for some radical joy. And this week, the three fingers pointing back at me are for the color blue, represented in this episode by sadness and hope. Part 5 of a 7-part series for Pride Month. Hello, friends. What a wonderful day to wake up and sit in front of the microphone. Because today we're going to be talking about two of the calmest emotions that I could think of whenever I'm thinking of the emotional spectrum. Blue, first and foremost, is a cooler color for sure in the way that we look at it, interpret it, especially the way that I look at it, interpreted it. And in such a manner, what we wanted to do was approach blue as, again, we're a theme here, if nothing else. In the wonderful Disney Pixar Inside Out, blue was represented, characterized by this small character, Sadness. And she had a very specific manner of speaking. She was very emotional. She was on the verge of tears basically 24/7. And it was a very broad stroke for a very complex emotion. I get what they were going for there. They're all representations of emotions for a very young girl. And as we grow older, of course, our emotions continue to evolve and become more colorful and intricate. It is a wonderful starting point for today's episode. Sadness can be so many different things. For me, I think sadness usually comes across as far as if I were to close my eyes and envision what it is I'm feeling, it is a heaviness. It is a quiet calm that usually weighs on me. I'm a very buoyant personality. I don't think that really comes as a surprise to many. And whenever sadness comes to grip at my heart, it usually turns into something quiet, something still, and also something heavy. At the time of this recording, we've just gone by Mother's Day, and that can definitely be a difficult time for many of us, for those of us who have lost mothers, for those of us who don't know mothers, for those of us who have them and perhaps are estranged from them. It can be a very difficult time. And so it's one of those things where you get this information from friends and loved ones about how they're feeling on such an emotional day, on emotionally charged, high running kind of holiday. And it's interesting the way that so many people both experience sadness as well as how they deal with it. And some people lash out. They get very angry about certain things that probably in their minds should have, could have, would have, and aren't, weren't, ain't. And there is a sense of injustice, unfairness. And I think a lot of people find that it induces a rage of sorts. And that can be anything from a loud and ranting anger and fury to something that is very cold and shaded and hopefully hidden in order to avoid hurting anyone other than the person going through that emotion. Whenever I say hidden, I mean the unhealthy aspects of it, because I really do. I would love to know how we share that in order to lighten the burden, because I think trying to work through it on our own can often be very tricky and a little dangerous. I was speaking with a friend of mine here in the house where I'm living, And she is a psychotherapist, and she and I were talking about things. I said, yeah, I often speak to ChatGPT about things that weigh on my mind and heart, much like I would the journal, much like I do whenever I come to the microphone here for another episode of Radical Joy. And she explained to me that that could have a pretty dangerous connotation because the way artificial intelligence works, especially in situations like that, is it acts as a mirror and will often reflect back the things that you want. It's like, okay, that's fair. That's a really good way of looking at it. And I would like to say that any sort of help that I get from ChatGPT, I consider more like a horoscope, where I take the things that are useful and I discard the things that are not. And I think that is a good way of going about it. As we try to move through our own sadness, whether it's grief or disappointment or any other number of nouns we can use as an embodiment or a classification of sadness, I think it's so important that we continue to call on those around us that are dealing with something similar or have dealt with something similar in the past, not as a blueprint, but more as a guide to figure out, well, let me try this just in case, or I've been trying to work through it and I haven't had success. Perhaps I should speak with others who have dealt with this kind of thing to know how they dealt with it. So maybe I can try some new tactics in order to move past it, right? Among those new tactics for dealing with something like sadness, might I offer our complement in this episode, which is hope. Hope is one of those things where I think a lot of people see it as a foolhardy endeavor in certain situations. And I'm here to be a representative or an advocate for hope when dealing with sadness. I think hope carries an element of the divine inside it, for the simple fact that sometimes what is happening in your life feels almost insurmountable by any means. And you have nothing more than hope sometimes in our arsenal to defend ourselves against that darkness. It seems almost a fool's errand. And so, in order to look at that as something effective, I usually tend to dip into the divine whenever I think of something like that. Why? Not necessarily from a standpoint of spirituality or faith, just in the fact that whenever I deal with something that feels so heavy, so dark, so pain filled, that something that I can conjure, like a sense of hope, can be helpful, does definitely put it into the realm of the divine or the faithful. I hope that things will improve. I have a divine confidence that they will. And all I have to do now is continue walking the path as if they are already on their way to better, and continue to note when they do actually become better, easier, lighter, more bearable. Sadness is one of those things that creeps up on you. It comes out of nowhere and it sort of grabs you by the shoulders and looks into your eyes and puts something cold into your soul. It drops those little sharp ice crystals into your heart, and sometimes it is difficult to shake. And the reason it is because it comes out of nowhere, right? It's one of those things that's just the nastiest flavor of surprise. The thing that it makes me think of, I am not a ticklish person. If you come at me and I know that you're attempting to tickle me, the chances are very good you're not going to be successful. I see it coming. I'm prepared. I steel myself against whatever it is you think you're going to do that's going to bring me to my knees with weakness, laughter, and ridiculous. And I just know it's coming, so I am prepared. That being said, should you sneak attack me, I don't see it coming. The next thing I feel are bony fingers in a rib cage, or some sort of like grab at the nape of the neck, or you horse eats corn on a knee. You know what I'm talking about, right? Especially any of my Southerners out there. And yes, even at the ripe old age I do have friends in my circle that come at me with something like this. I'm like, okay, I get it. This is what keeps us young. And also, bonkers. Absolutely freak out. Yikes, hit the ceiling, like the whole thing. Sadness is very similar in a very opposite direction, a very different direction. I shouldn't say opposite. It will sneak up out of nowhere and it will grab you. The loss of a loved one unexpectedly, the loss of a job, position, organization, relationship unexpectedly or even semi expectedly. Those kinds of things take us by surprise. And when they do, they sit on our guts and they make it difficult to breathe and sometimes hard to move. And that's the thing you need more than anything is the breath and the motion. And it, I think sadness is a very wise emotion if we can personify for a moment. I think sadness comes at us with a knowledge of exactly who we are and how to freeze us in our tracks and how to make it very difficult to move forward through something like that. And while I enjoy thinking of it like that, and I think it aids me in my mission to move past it or to leave it in the rearview mirror, what I'd also like to say is I have a lot of friends that are going through something similar right now. And I encourage them to live in it for just a moment. You don't have to dwell on it. I think that is sometimes a mistake, not always. Sometimes people really need to live in it for a moment just to sort of understand what it is they have to move through in order to heal and to address it, to really come after it. Because I think that some situations deserve more time in that sadness than others. I have a friend who's going through a very difficult time in his marriage at this moment, and he gets so angry and lonely and upset. And I will often hear from him, and we will FaceTime or whatever. And he's like, I'm just so effing lonely. I said, yeah, buddy, I understand that. The way you describe this to me, it doesn't sound very healthy. What it sounds like is a very on again, off again emotion. And what I'd recommend instead of trying to soothe the loneliness with something that is temporary or perhaps unhealthy or not the most um, nutritious course of action, meaning sugar or alcohol, poor eating, whatever you want to call it, maybe you're just going to have to live in this for a minute, right? Just kind of sit there and sort of soak it up until you just about can't take anymore. And then you can sort of bounce off the bottom, rock bottom, and make your way back toward the top of this and sort of shed or release those weights on your way back up to the top. The idea I get in my mind is someone who is in a semi-viscous liquid. Well, I guess is kind of redundant because almost any liquid is going to be a little bit viscous. Someone who is sinking in, say, I don't even want to call it syrup. I think that's a little bit too much. I think maple syrup would be a little too thick for what we're dealing with here, but I would give it an olive oil for sure. And they start to descend as they take on the weight of whatever it is they're dealing with, and it continues to accelerate as they head towards the bottom. And it's a very curious predicament of timing that whenever you get to the bottom, you use the momentum of the bounce to start releasing these things that have weighed you down on your way to rock bottom. Because what's the thing we don't want to do is get down there, bounce a bit, hold on to these things that have weighed us down and sent us to the bottom of our sadness and cling to those weights so that they continue to hold us at the bottom of this container. We cannot breathe in oil, which seems like a pretty obvious thing to state. Yes, I know. I'm the one who created the metaphor. So yeah, I'm going to have to work with it. I get it. Once we get down to the bottom and we feel ourselves tap, and then we feel that momentum of that rise, that hope that whatever we're dealing with, we're going to be able to move through, release the burdens, let them fall to the bottom of our container and stay there while we rise. I think that's a really important set of images that hopefully we can cling to the next time we deal with something this difficult. And I want to sort of inject this now that we're dealing with the metaphor of a container and our viscous liquid. I would like to perhaps suggest that not every container is swimming pool depth or silo depth. Not every liquid is going to be olive oil or maple syrup or even worse, concrete. All of these things are liquids, okay? All of these things are containers, and some of these problems are going to be like, oh, okay, yeah. That was a bad day. Snacking a nap, we're back on our feet, away we go, up and running. Great. What I would like to also suggest that this is a practice. This is something we rehearse in order to become more and more proficient. Because I think that as we mature, both from children into adulthood and from an adulthood into an older adulthood, there are things that grab us unawares that we did not realize sometimes we were dealing with until lo and behold, the monkey is on the back and we're wondering why each step is a drudge. Got it. Something that's been weighing on me recently, not even weight, it's just a very conscious notice, is how many beautiful young people there are in the world. It's so nice to watch that. It's good to see that there are these young people who are blooming. They are just exploding into their lives, and I love to see it because I think that as I grew from childhood into teen and adult, that's what happened to me as well. It wasn't a like a big bang sort of situation. It was a constant burn into a brighter light, I would like to say. And all along the way, it just continued to get hotter and brighter, and it was amazing. And I see some of these kids who are just exploding on the scene. I love it. And there's also a part of me that continues to see people that I know and love, both on social media or in television and film. Actors who I'm very familiar with that started their careers as these painful beauties. So unbelievably attractive that it's just like, oh, it hurts to look at you. And now, some 20, 30 years later, they have started to become a different kind of beauty. And that's the thing I want to continue to remain focused on is it is not they are losing what they had. They are moving into another part of their beauty and attraction and benefit of life. I want to say that. And there again is that hope. Because I think it's really easy to turn something into a binary saying they were beautiful when they're young and now they're silver and wrinkled and meh, 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 which is, if we are all fortunate, where we will all find ourselves at some point during our journeys. Again, if we are fortunate. And there's a part of me that's just like, am I so petty? Am I so vain? That there's a part of me that would love to check out before I get into that era of life where I am hopefully just epically wise and calm. And the things that used to fizz me so unbelievably are now barely even a blip on anyone's radar. But by that point, it'll probably be an EKG. And it happens. It does. It's not one of those things that I'm even ashamed of. It's one of those things where I continue to face it. There's a part of me that used to think that by the age of 68, I would be ready to check out and or would already be suitcase in hand on my way on to the next whatever's waiting. I don't fear it. I don't necessarily anticipate it. It is anticipated because it comes for all of us. it's one of those things where I know in my lizard brain that feels as though it is something I need to be sad about. And then there is my hope brain that comes in to say, but look at all you've done. Look at what is still left to be. And there's still plenty of juice left in the fruit, friend. It's not like you're dry on the vine just hanging here waiting for the grim reaper. No, of course not. No one here is 20 anymore. Right. Exactly. And there are wonderful things about that. There is a hope in that because I'm so much less stupid now than I was when I was in my 20s. And there is a sadness there now because I can look at those pictures and know what I felt when I was in my 20s and think, wow. All of these tropes, all of these things we know, these metaphors, these sayings, these adages, this wives' tale wisdom really has a kernel of truth in all of it, if not more. Man, if I knew then what I knew now. Right, but you know what's great? I know now what I know now. And nobody here's dead. If you can hear the sound of my voice, you ain't dead yet. Wonderful. So, when the sneak attack of that sadness comes to find you for whatever reason that may be, for looking at pictures of loved ones that you met when you were in the bloom of youth, and now you are all in this gorgeous gloaming of where you are now in your lives. There's beauty in both of those things. And I know that because of the hope I hold in my heart for the way that I look at this. It would be so easy to mourn, right? Yeah. Yes, it would. It would be so easy to look at that. It's like, gosh, wow, I remember that when my knees didn't hurt and didn't make so much flipping noise whenever I rolled out of bed in the morning. I remember that whenever I didn't have to look around for my reading glasses whenever I needed to read the back of a bottle or a magazine or what someone had sent me in a text message. I remember whenever I didn't have to worry so much about what I was eating because it wouldn't turn into an extra inch on my waistline overnight. And then I look at something and the fact, well, I know what that means now when somebody says that to me. I know what that means whenever someone appears to be rude or mean spirited to me, whenever I know that it's just a difficulty they are trying to navigate and they feel safe enough or secure enough in our friendship that they say these things to me that initially feels like a hurt or a barb when reflected upon with a little wisdom, insight, and grace. This is a friend calling for help, and I need to be that person, perhaps. Not saying you need to endure abuse. What I'm saying is you need to know when your special people are going through something so you can offer to extend them the grace and listen, maybe share a burden, maybe share a secret so they don't have to worry about forcing your hand for help. I think that's where I want to go with that. You need to know that whenever someone that you love does something like that to you, chances are good they need something and they don't know how to ask. So they might be sort of leaping without paying attention or watching. Okay. All right, let's explore it because this is what's up. This is what I saw. This is what I felt, and this is why I'm coming to you to say, is this really what's happening? Or do we just need to have, we need to hug it out? Do I need to listen to you for a while? I got 8 minutes. I got 12 minutes. What's on your mind? Talk to me about it. And knowing that sadness has so many faces, as does hope. Sadness can come across as any number of things like aggression, um, um, it, again, mean. It can be an insult. It can be one of those things. It the humor that many people share is not always the same flavor or color or temperature. And so whenever someone thinks they're being witty and or hiding their sadness or disappointment or whatever cooler tempt or colored emotion they're feeling, it may not be very well hidden at all. As a matter of fact, it may, smack upside your head like, a hammer. So, for the people we love most in our lives, sometimes it's one of those things where we need to ask. It's like, okay, this is what I felt, this is what I saw. Just making sure that are we on the same page here? Are you trying to make me feel bad, or are you dealing with something and that's the best way you know to deal with it? That's your cry for help. That's your hand in the air. Please, please come over here and ask me what's going on so I can tell you without feeling like a burden. Sure. Yes. And I think we need to keep that in mind. And there's part of me that hopes that my friends see that in me if I'm acting out in order to try to get this kind of help. I'm not good at it. I continue to hope that I will get better and improve at it. It's just one of those things where I think that whenever I start to slide into sadness, I think my people know because I tend to get a little quiet on social media or in texts or in correspondence or any of those kind of things. That's just what happens. And I have to be okay with that. I'm like, I meet it. I do. And sometimes I notice and sometimes I don't. And then some of the least expected will come out of nowhere to ask me if things are going well. And I love it. And I would like to encourage all of us to accept that whenever it comes. Does anyone else out there have a terrible habit of wanting help from one specific person in your life? And so you put out the vibe and others come to your aid or others come to check on you, but they're not the person you wanted or hoped would pick up that signal. And so you get a little bit out of shape that these people are coming to your aid and not necessarily the person that you wanted to come and knock on your door. I do. I do. And it's not something I love. What it is something that I am aware of and need to realize that the help that we want isn't always the help that arrives. The word is still the same, help. And it's there and it's knocking. And though it may not come from the source that you perhaps anticipated or wanted to see, she's still there. And that's wonderful. And aren't we lucky that we have so many places that this help could come to dig us out of whatever hole in which we find ourselves? Wonderful. That's another thing I want to do. Please stay open to the help that arrives. Okay, it may not look like it. Like, oh man, my entire life would be so much easier if I just happened to find 50 grand in the back of a rental car and nobody said nothing and I took it and I just made my whole life better. Yes. And then instead of finding 50 grand in the back of a rental car, that's such a specific example, isn't it? Yeah. I probably could have come up with something a little broader, but here we are. And instead of that 50 grand in the back of that rental car, what you did get was this incredible job offer, doing something you love for more money that you're currently making. And perhaps that is a more sustainable answer than just this windfall of mystery cash that could have strings or consequences. Great. That's something I think we need to do too. We need to put out the vibe of something that we feel we need and trust that the world will deliver what it is we're actually in need of seeing or doing or receiving, and then being hopeful, divinely confident that it's going to make its way to us, and then being smart/wise enough to take it once the world offers it to us on a silver platter. Because don't doubt it. Please don't doubt it. Be open to the notion that what you truly need is literally just waiting on the other side of the ether just to drop in your lap. Why? Because we expect it. Because we have divine confidence that it's on our way to us, not necessarily the 50 grand in the back of the rental car. The thing that is the universe's answer to that request that's going to improve our lives in such a way so that it is almost unnoticeable at first. And then once we have a little distance from the delivery to the use of said system, we realize that our prayer's been answered, that our wish has been granted, that the blessing has come in abundance, and it was so smooth. So slick. I didn't even notice until I look back 6 months from now and that extra 50 grand is already in the bank. What? Yes, exactly. Sadness countered with hope, so that the sadness lets us know what it is we feel we need, and the divine confidence of hope puts out the signal, and the lifeline gets thrown to us from the powers that be, that only want the very best for every single one of us that has the courage to ask. Thank you so much for being here with me at Radical Joy and with us here at CLW Studios. It's always a pleasure. If this is your first episode, welcome. We're so glad you're here. If this is not your first episode, may I be the first to say, welcome back. So happy you're here with us today. Thank you for coming back for more of the things that I hope are helping elevate all of our lives so that we can remain and maintain a strong sense of joy and capability in whatever life throws at us. If you're the kind of person who likes to leave a review, please do so on whatever platform where you're listening. Leave us 5 stars. Take a screenshot of that. Send it to us so we know how and whom to send a little swag. We've got a brand new look here at Radical Joy as we enter season 3. Well, now as we navigate season 3 and all of our emotions that come with it, and we would love to send you something like a sticker that you can add to a journal, a favorite water bottle, a laptop, wherever you choose to stick a sticker. Please make sure to tell your friends and anyone else that you think might benefit from what we try to do here at CLW Studios with Radical Joy, because that is by far and large the most effective way to get the word and what we're trying to do out to the world. Please always know just exactly how much we love y'all.